Hi, I'm Cody. Welcome to The Man Unmasked. Today I want to spend a little time talking about the problem that we all face, a problem increasingly common in Western developed society. We're increasingly distracted, we're isolated, we have a population more and more connected and less intimate. That's created a whole host of problems in both men and women, of isolation, of lack of connection, and ultimately of failing to develop the growth and maturity skills that we need as people to help us grow through the adversity that we're sure to face in life. I want to talk about a method of meditation and define it. What do we mean by meditation? That's such a huge word. It's so broadly applied. And I want to first talk about what I think meditation is and how I use that in my daily life and in our men's group, how we train our brains to interact with both our perceptions of the world so that we have an accurate understanding of not only the problems we face, but of our strengths and of our weaknesses, so that we're not overestimating our strengths or underestimating our weaknesses or underestimating the problems we're facing or their solutions, so that we're connecting with reality and applying solutions in our lives that will actually move the ball forward and help us to develop skills to turn us into strong, resilient, capable people. So if our life is the sum total of our internalized beliefs, what do you believe about yourself? Who am I? These beliefs that we carry around about who we are, our identity, they come from a variety of places. They come from a combination of our genetics and our childhood experiences. What kind of environment did we grow up in? Was it safe or was it not safe? What kind of modeling did we have? We're a mimetic species. In our environment, our schools, our home, what kind of modeling did we have for stress? When things were tense, how did mom and dad respond to that stress? Our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our community. What learning, what skills, what emotional skills, coping skills did we receive or didn't we receive? Epictetus, my favorite Stoic philosopher, the unexamined life is not worth living. What's he really talking about there? He's talking about the fact that most people walk around in a fog of rumination about themselves, thinking about their own problems, trying to understand themselves, yet failing to truly connect to who they are and why they are the way they are, so that they can then find solutions to grow beyond and turn maladaptive coping skills learned in childhood into adaptive skills that will help people to grow and make progress in their lives. The problem is really faulty perceptions in a large way. These faulty perceptions create illusions, stories that we tell ourselves. Many people, I'm sure, if you're watching this, you may know people who are very reactionary and defensive. They have a narrative about themselves. It's been said that, someone who does not love themselves, who might have low self-esteem, you can love that person all you want, and they won't believe you. You can tell that person, you're great, you're amazing. No, you're actually very kind or smart or intelligent. And if they don't believe it, they will not believe you. Their perceptions are off, which leads to an illusion about who they are that is a partial truth at best. This is true of all of us, myself included. As I was thinking about this and how to talk about it, it occurs to me just how applicable this is to me, how difficult it is for me to see myself. So how do I know that I'm living my life in a series of illusions? The main way that I know that is pain, emotional pain. I think reality is one way, but the world teaches me, gives me a set of conditions, or I think someone is my friend who isn't my friend. I butt up against these moments in my life of emotional discomfort or pain, if we'll call it. That pain exists because my model of reality and reality itself were discongruent. They weren't the same. I was wrong. And the sooner that I can get to a pattern of living, a daily pattern of living that helps me to question my own perceptions, then I can begin to clear the illusions up and connect with the objective truth of my life. So the pain I have learned is such a benefit, such an important thing. And I've learned to lean into the pain. And if you don't know what that means, Brené Brown's got some great work on what it means to lean into pain. Many really great, really bright thinkers and thought leaders increasingly talk about the importance of adversity and emotional pain, emotional discomfort being information that is critical to not avoid, numb, or distract yourself from, but to listen to lean into. If you don't know what that means, to lean into the discomfort, or you don't know why that would be beneficial, drop us a message. Someone from our men's group will reach out. So what's the way out of all this? Where do we go from here? Well, there's some tools we can use that I've found to be very beneficial in my life. One of them being mindfulness. Mindfulness, like meditation, is one of these words that is hard to understand what people mean by that. Some people mean just being aware of the stresses they're feeling, the more acute emotions in someone else. Are you really listening to what they're saying and cueing into their emotional state? Are you being mindful of their nonverbal cues and of your own? And that is partly what I mean, but I think it goes a layer beyond that. And I want to break it up really into a couple sections. The first one being mindfulness is really paying attention to your inner landscape, particularly the interplay between your thoughts and your emotions, and getting to a place of recognizing how critically interdependent your thoughts and emotions are, and that you cannot have a thought, very difficult or impossible from my lived experience and didactic learning. It's difficult or impossible to have an emotion without a thought. All thought leads to emotion. All emotion comes from thought. And getting to a place of what the Eastern philosophical traditions, some of them call non-duality, where we recognize that, and this is a very subtle frame shift, but I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am the awareness of my thoughts and my emotions. In the same way that if I had a pain in a body part, I would be aware of that pain, but I wouldn't identify with it. If I had a pain in my big toe, I wouldn't say, I am pain in my big toe. And yet if I have a pain in my brain, a sadness, if you will, or stress at work, or fear of the unknown, facing some situation which I've never faced before and don't know what to do, some general angst, I identify with that. We as humans are carried away in that emotion, and there is no difference between the emotion itself and our lived experience. But it's possible through a focused technique of quiet breathing to train your brain to get to a place of paying close attention to the interplay between your thoughts and your emotions. But you really can't solve an emotional problem or a thinking problem by more thinking. You can't solve an emotional problem by thinking about the problem itself more or by thinking about yourself more. In fact, that's only going to make it worse. The way to effectively intervene on thoughts and emotions that are based on faulty perceptions and are thus faulty themselves, they are half-truths. The way to do that is to focus on the interplay of the mind and emotions with the body is the next step. The therapeutic realm calls this biofeedback training. A lot of different names for it, different philosophical traditions, but all of them really try to do one thing. They try to get the person to connect to what they're physiologically feeling. How fast is their heart beating? How are they breathing? Are they short of breath? Am I having an anxiety response? Am I thinking without knowing I'm thinking, and I'm not actually present in this moment? I'm living in the future, thinking about some problem. I'm living in the past, thinking about what I should have done or said, or how I should have been, or the ways in which I would have shown up better for someone. Often, our anxiety, our depression, are a consequence of being lost in a fog of rumination, thinking without knowing we're thinking about our problems, about ourselves mostly, and getting to a place of non-duality in which we realize we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions, we are the awareness of our thoughts and the awareness of our emotions, and coupling that with physiologic feedback. What is my heart rate doing right now? Am I focusing on my breath? And through that process of mindfulness, what we do is we start our day with that in the morning. We end our day with that in the evening. And throughout the day, we punctuate our day with 100 tiny instances of the technique. And over time, what begins to happen is we train ourselves to focus on our breath The breath helps us to understand what emotional state we might be in. The next step is intentional vulnerability. Again, you can't solve a thinking problem by thinking more. At some point, these ideas must leave the mind and make their way through our mouths, which is the pathway to other people's limbic systems. If our limbic system, our emotional regulation center, is the part of the problem, our thinking is the problem, which leads to a limbic problem. We're anxious, we're sad, we're scared, we're some version of neurotic emotion. That must make its way from our brain to our lips in an unfiltered and radically vulnerable way, to a group in a strategic way, to a safe group of friends. If you're men, it's critically important to do this at least once or twice a week, to a group of men you trust, and practice the skill of learned vulnerability. In the light of sunshine, a lot of the stinking thinking and the thoughts, the problematic self-based thoughts that lead to neurotic emotions begin to be challenged. Our perceptions, our self-perceptions begin to be challenged by objective external people who love us, have our best interests at heart, and do not have the perceptual problems that we have. They can see our life a little bit clearer than we can. So we use mindfulness to get some clue of our own inner state and the interplay between our thoughts and our emotions and our body, our physiology, our breathing, and our heart rate in particular. We do that to get awareness of ourselves, to learn ourselves a little bit. So many people don't know that they're anxious. Some people think it's a prison sentence, and once you have it, that there can't be something done about it. But in fact, the solution is far more attainable than many of us could possibly have realized. Once we're mindful of our emotional states and the thoughts that lead to those emotional states, then we can reach out and expose that thinking and those perceptions and those judgments of reality to other people who have our best interest at heart. And I've always been a lover of the saying, we are smarter than me. If I give my thoughts and perceptions to anyone around me that I think has some life experience and is well-intentioned, every time the collective group has been able to help me see the folly in my own thinking and help to point out solutions that may have taken me much longer otherwise to find. The next way that we integrate a meditation practice into our life, meditation meaning, again, intentional living. The unexamined life is not worth living. It's too much suffering to bump from problem to problem, emotion to emotion, failing to understand why. And the world is a mirror. We use the world as a mirror. We learn about ourselves in relationship to other people. So how do you know if you're operating under an illusion? The world will tell you. Your relationships will be bumpy. You'll lose a job unexpectedly after thinking you were doing great. You may lose a relationship unexpectedly after thinking it was going fine. The world will continue to teach us through our relationships. It's a mirror. What I believe about the world largely will be given back to me. If I think people are hostile, the world will be fairly hostile. If I think the world is accepting, it'll be fairly accepting, or at least I'll perceive it that way. People give us information about ourselves. They hold up mirrors, and our ego prevents us from looking in the mirror that they're holding up. Ego is the enemy, very stoic idea that failing to look at maybe the emotionally challenging things that people will show us in their behavior. If I come to somebody with a certain action and they come back to me with a tension, sometimes it's just them, but more often than not, I have found that they are reflecting and amplifying something that I have unknowingly given them. I have failed to infect them with calm or understanding, and instead, because I wasn't mindful of my own state, I infected them with stress or anxiety or irritation. The world is a mirror. And training ourselves to look at the feedback we receive from other people helps us to course correct and understand some degree of what our own internal state is actually betraying to others. So what are the steps here? I guess step one, we have to challenge our perceptions. And we have to do that because those perceptions were given to us in very, very fraught times as children, mimetically by the people that raised us. All great people, our families, our teachers, our spiritual leaders, our friends, but all themselves with faulty perceptions and maladaptive coping skills. A lot of the ideas in our head we gained in childhood, and they were put there by well-intentioned people, but are absolute garbage, to quote Orion Taraban, Psych Hacks. So we take the pain we feel throughout our lives as we butt up to circumstances, and the reality of the situation is different than the illusions we have been operating under, which leads to emotional pain. We're disappointed or sad or scared as a result. If we're mindful, we realize that emotional state. We realize that the thinking and the perceptions that we had that led to that moment have now created a stress response in some way. And if we're training ourselves to be aware of that stress response, my heart is beating faster. I just feel generally angry. And anger is a secondary emotion. Really, any neurotic emotion should become information. And with that information, we then look around and we use the world and our relationships as a mirror, realizing that the closer the relationships are, the better the mirror, which is hard for many of us. Our spouses know us better than anyone else. They really know our shit. They know we are not what we think we are or what we say we are. They're heartbroken seeing the difference between what we think we are and we say we are and what we actually could be. Unrealized potential is one of the most heartbreaking things. This is where we learn the proving ground of our lives is in our relationships. The closer, the better. As we gain this information about reality and our model of reality and the difference between the two, the illusion, we then come in a regular way to friend groups. Men really need men. Women need women. But women are much more natural community builders, much more natural vulnerability, exposing themselves, exposing their weaknesses, their insecurities. Men, we are not trained for that. In fact, we are trained very much to hide in a variety of ways. Vulnerability can be extremely uncomfortable. And learning the skill of vulnerability with other men, although at first it's uncomfortable, that is the skill. Through doing that, through exercising that courage and overcoming our fear, because really fear and ego are the barriers. Those are the barriers to saying, this is who I am, this is how I think, and some of this is problematic, requires humility. And humility is the antidote to ego. Fear and ego keep us locked in patterns of behavior that we can't escape out of, and only keep us suffering or make our suffering prolonged and delay the maturity that we need to go through. We have to grow. We have to become resilient. We have to learn emotional skills to have equanimity in the face of whatever we face. It's through living an examined life, being mindful of our internal states, using the world as a mirror, allowing people to give us the feedback, feeling the biofeedback, practicing things that naturally teach us biofeedback. Yoga being a great example, maybe one of the best ones I'm aware of, to help us understand the interplay between our thoughts, our monkey minds, our emotions, and our physiology. Learning to breathe through pain, learning to not avoid, numb, or distract discomfort, but to be in that moment and use the painful moment as fuel, as information, to know which direction to go in, to grow in. The cracks let in the light, and living a sober life and connecting with that pain is the only way to what's on the other side, which is a resilient, capable person with the emotional skills needed to not only meet their own challenges, but to really get to the goal in life, which is helping others, getting outside of our own heads, outside of our own problems, our own delusions, and learning to be outward focused, to be selfless. That is the antidote. It's a magic cure, getting out of oneself. So I want to talk about the next critical skill. And these are all skills: acceptance, presence, mindfulness, biofeedback, vulnerability. These are skills. And viewing them as not just skills that are not natural for many of us, men in particular, but worth acquiring. In fact, critical. If you're going to become the man in your brain, the man that you want to become, the man that you envision, the man you know that you can be, these skills have to evolve. We have to grow them. So acceptance, I think to talk about acceptance and why it's so critical for a minute, it's, I think, worth talking about the illusion of control that we have, especially as man. There's this myth of the self-made man. If I accomplish a lot in my life and I'm successful, society has told me that's all because of me. It's because I'm smart or hardworking or have some talents, and I made all the right decisions and made the right moves. And to some extent, a little bit of that could be true deterministically, but it is largely an illusion. The other side of that is, if nothing goes my way, and in spite of all my efforts I fail, that's all my fault as well. But really, why acceptance is so critical is because it's the opposite, it's antithetical, is control. And control is really a fear response. It's a maladaptive coping strategy that many people, myself included, have throughout their life not only employed successfully, but some people have perfected, trying to control things fundamentally outside of their control, which is almost always people and their reactions, their thoughts, their emotions, what we think they should do, or we think they should feel or do or say about a certain thing. And once we realize that control really is truly an illusion and is a fear response, it's an attempt to get out ahead of the thing that we don't want. The attachment we have made to a suboptimal outcome that we have already decided is not in our best interests. And we have decided to try to avert or delay or avoid that outcome in whatever way we possibly can, exerting whatever means or influence we can on the people around us to get the outcome that we want. What acceptance is really the opposite of that. It's an emotional letting go of the outcome. It's a decision to be okay with what is. The Stoics, as the Stoics say, amor fati, a love of fate. Circumstance will come and give us a given set of challenge or blessing or joy, things to be grateful for. And learning the skill of taking that on its own terms without trying to push away what we're averse to or to pull towards us what we want. That is the skill of acceptance. It's ceasing to make sense of why things are the way that they are. The illusion that if we just understand something, that then we can change it. The two skills of acceptance and presence both have one thing in common, in that they are born out of our very unique brains as a human species. We have this structure, very thin millimeters thick structure in our brain that is unique to us, called the neocortex. And what the neocortex's job is it's an algorithmic thought generator. If this, then that. If this, then that. And for most of our evolutionary history, that served us very well to look forward to, if I don't save up enough food, the winter could be long and some people may not make it out. If that algorithmic thinking helped us then, and still occasionally will help us to avoid heartache, to avoid mistakes that we want to learn from our mistakes and grow and not repeat them. And to some extent, that algorithmic generation of thought can work in our favor, but more often than not, all it's doing is stopping us from accepting this present moment and pulling our attention away from this present moment and into thoughts of the future. If this, then that. If this, then that. Without even knowing we're doing it. Again, we're lost in a fog of rumination about our problems now, our fears, taking counsel from our fears. And once we decide to stop making sense of and just accept whatever the thing is, now we have a place from which we can live life on life's terms. And we can meet the moment with what the moment needs, not what we're afraid the moment means or what we're afraid the next moment is going to bring, and then react or act in some suboptimal way that isn't in our own best interests, doesn't actually help resolve whatever the challenge is, and only delays our own growth and finding a solution, an inevitable solution, which more often than not is going to happen whether we do something or not. Acceptance is an open hand. It's a contract, a renewed contract that we make with ourselves daily to not have our equanimity be impacted by circumstances beyond our control. It's deciding to no longer surrender ourselves to the emotional roller coaster. When things go the way that I want, meaning I get what I want, I assign that good. And when things go the way I would prefer not, which means I don't get what I want. I assign that as bad. And when things are bad, I don't feel well. And when things are good, I feel great. And I'm on an emotional roller coaster outside of my control, born of external circumstances. To grow, we no longer can condition our well-being, our happiness, our contentment in each moment to moment, on any set of external circumstances or future conditions that need to be met first. We stop. We accept this present moment for what it is. My mentor, Paul, always has this question that rings in my mind. What's so wrong with this moment right now? What's the matter with this one? And when we really stop and think about that question, most of the moments are just fine. They're great. And yet we're always reaching, yearning for some better moment just around the corner. Or trying to avoid or run away from the moments that we've gone through that we don't want to repeat again and are scared that we might have to. Acceptance requires, in many ways, a sober approach to life. It requires us to not numb, distract, avoid, or distort any set of circumstances in our life, but to accept whatever it is with an open hand, an open heart, not knowing what might be done about it, and not having the skill, the emotional skill to handle it. The only way to grow those skills is to feel it in the moment, internalize it, and use the information to help us know in which direction we need to grow. The final skill that keeps us living a life of meditation every day, presence training. We live our life one day at a time. We live our lives one moment at a time. And how we spend our moments is how we spend our days, and how we spend our days is how we spend our life. Presence training is the number one skill. Showing up for our lives moment to moment. You know, if we think about the role of the cost of not staying present for our life is a very steep cost. It delays our growth and maturity in all sorts of subtle ways. And as a good Stoic, I think of Marcus Aurelius's call to action. He says, the obstacle is the way. That which stands in the way becomes the way. The impediment to action advances action. It means the thing that's in your way that's so difficult right now that you just can't get past. It's school, it's study, it's bad habits we're trying to get to turn into good ones. It's difficult emotional relationships with difficult people in our lives at work or at home. All of these are obstacles that stand in our way that we would all love to avoid. But no resilient, capable person becomes that way by avoiding it. They lean into the discomfort. They lean into the obstacle. And the obstacles don't change, but our shoulders grow. Our emotional and cognitive skill set grows. Our coping skills go from maladaptive, often learned in childhood in mimetic ways, to functionally capable of moving our lives forward and helping us to gain peace and emotional stability in spite of the most unnerving circumstances. Viktor Frankl, in his very famous work, has this great line that says, between stimulus and response, there is a moment. And in that moment lies all our growth and all our freedom. How do we know if we are staying present, if we are being mindful, if we are accepting? Between stimulus and response, there is a moment. In that moment, do you react the same way that you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 2 years ago? Or do you respond in kindness and wisdom and empathy? Do you suffer in the intervening moment? Or are you at peace? Presence training is the skill. Breath is the way. Breath is the number one skill that helps us to integrate all of this mindfulness and awareness, and all of these things come back to the breath. Breath is life. Focusing on the breath. One of the interesting things about our minds are that we really cannot focus on more than one thing at one time. Some people are under the illusion that they can. Mindful people are aware that If you're focusing on more than one thing at one time, you're fractioning your attention and focusing on less. When you do one thing at a time or focus one thing at a time, if you live your life one moment at a time, you show up for conversations. You show up for the people in your life. You are undistracted. You get the double benefit of doing less better. If it's true that we can't really truly holistically focus on more than one thing at a time, learning the skill of focusing on one's breath serves to train our brains to keep us here now, not avoiding the pain or the joy, breathing through it, regulating our limbic system and our physiology through breathing, bringing us back to this present moment. So the daily meditation that I'm suggesting is twice a day. It's a combination of practicing non-duality, remembering that we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions, we are the awareness of our thoughts and our emotions. And from that position, we can jettison bad thoughts and emotions. We don't have to be tied to them. We don't have to be identified with them. They don't have to become part of our identity. We can be quick and open to letting go pieces of us that we may have carried around for years. From that position, we can begin to realize that our emotional states are colored by our thoughts, and our thoughts are on a loop of ruminating, neurotic, needling, rambling, monkey mind, jumping from neurotic thought to neurotic thought, mostly about our problems. And as we get better and better at realizing that, we begin to use emotions as an early warning indicator that something has gone awry, and that I'm now feeling a negative emotion. And that is the very first durable sign of progress in your day, punctuating your day with 100 tiny instances of feeling the negative emotion and responding with breath. Breath pulls you back to this present moment, and this present moment has all of your solutions. There's nothing waiting for you in the next moment. And there's nothing in the previous moment that once you've examined your mistakes and learned your lessons and integrated them and documented them through journaling in your life, an open and vulnerable discussion with your friend groups, once you have done that, move on. The past holds nothing for you. The future is a fantasy, half-truth at best. This present moment has everything you need to grow, to be happy, and to connect with the reality of your life. And then finally, using these skills to pass it along as we heal from our maladaptive coping behaviors and patterns of being in the world, the numbing and distracting and dopamine seeking that we all do in a Western developed society to treat our diagnosed or undiagnosed anxiety, depression, which again, depression are just thoughts of the past, anxiety, thoughts of the future. The more we get out of these illusory places that are not real, they're not this present moment, the happier we naturally become. The more we get out of our own problems, our own head, and we expose that to people who love us, they can help correct our thinking. We are smarter than any one of us. And from that place, we give it along. We pass it to other people as we become happier and use these very simple skills that are free and universally acceptable, secular, and highly testable. We teach others. Emotions are effective. These strategies are effective. Test them. If you're a man between Chicago and Milwaukee and have started a friend group, which means you have a friend and are willing to meet once a week for coffee with that friend, if you'd like to learn what it means to lean into the discomfort, to practice these skills on a daily basis in your life so that you're better company for yourself and for those that you say you love, reach out to us and a member of our group will connect with you and show you the next steps. Thank you.